comfortable place.
I'm gonna feed Mowgli right here so you all can maybe see how she does this. And then I had somebody's been asking me some questions, and I think they're good questions. So we'll talk about that. Come on, Mom. In you go.
Do you want me to put those in the dryer or just leave them in the washer?
No, you can put them over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I won't be here to make sure.
No, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it.
You've got enough going on.
I know.
I'm just look at me. I'm just giving work to you right now.
So, Mowgli, I am quite sure a lot of you folks have done tube feedings before. I know some of you have, but for those that haven't, her feeding tube hangs over on her right side, but it actually goes into the esophagus here, down into the esophagus. And I'm trying to feed her without taking this off, because if it comes out, if her tube comes out, we won't be able to do another anesthetic on her. So we have to make sure this stays in. So I always just flush it out first with water, just a little bit. She is probably the easiest cat I have ever done. Yeah, and I don't wear gloves, but I do wash my hands. This is not a sterile procedure. And then I push it in there kind of hard, and I just give her like 10 cc's at a time and wait. So one of the questions I was asked was, why does she still want to eat when we're tube? Oh, no, it's good questions. I like questions. It's okay. I'd rather you ask and we tell you how we do it here. But I was asked, why does she still want to eat even though we're doing sufficient calories and nutrition for her for a 24-hour period? And the answer to that is because that desire to eat is always there. She's got the desire to eat. She has not lost her appetite. And even though we satisfy a lot of that need, she still wants to have that eating. So then another question was, why can't you just go ahead and leave her eat? And we do. We let her eat. It's okay. She hasn't aspirated anymore. And actually her pneumonia is gone. We do think that pneumonia that she had gotten might have been from when she was under anesthetic to have the tube in, that all her slobberiness had been inhaled at that time. But she cannot eat enough calories with her mouth. She tries and tries to get a lot of it in her mouth, but most of it, if you watch her, comes right back down again. So she says, I don't usually do it here, but you're being awfully good. So most of the food that she does try to get still comes right on back out in slobber. So like when we take those plates away, a lot of it is her slobbery food stuff. So she doesn't really isn't able to eat enough to maintain. She has, some of her tongue has sloughed off. I don't think I mentioned that before. Some of the tongue has sloughed off, so it's back to the rim there, the little tissue that holds it down. So she doesn't have that front part of her tongue to push the food down. But she still has the desire, you know, gosh, it's not like she's sick in her tummy, so she still likes to eat, and that is okay. Gotta hold still, girl. And another question was, trying to remember, another question was, does the food, us feeding her like this, interfere with her antibiotics? Good question. The answer to that is no. She's still getting her antibiotics. And and they're compatible together, so it's okay. She doesn't have to, we don't have to time her antibiotics around her food. Oh, good question, Gail. We know that her can of food, the A&D can, it's the same size as a Frisky. She has to eat one of those a day. Now, when you take that A&D out, it's way too thick to put in the tube. It won't go. So we put probably 35 cc's a day in the can of the A&D, and then we also give her 2 of these 6 cc'ers at a time too. One before, or most of it, one before and one after, because you always want to, one before you go, make sure the tube is clear. It's not got any gunk in it. It shouldn't. And then you feed, and then you rinse it out with another one. As long as you get at least 3, and this is my second one. I always make sure I give at least 4 or 5 cc's. Our initial, that way she has enough fluid. So as long as we give her one whole can of A&D, which is high, it's high calories and high nutrition, that is super duper good nutrition for her for a 24-hour period. And how long do we know? Oh, right. And then this, I usually give her 45 cc's at a time. And so sometimes people who have tube-fed cats will do 50, 60 cc's, so they aren't feeding them as often. I don't like to do that. She's a small cat, and I don't want to overload her tummy. So I do anywhere from 40 to 45 cc's. And just so long as at the end of the day, on her last one, she has taken, like that cup that I had out, that cup holds a whole can of the A&D plus the water. How long do we have to feed her like that? Well, that's a good question, Jennifer. Our initial hope was that we knew that she was not consuming enough calories because she was losing a lot of weight. So we're going back up on the scale, so that's good. And our goal at that time was if we could keep tube feeding her and try to dry her mouth out a little bit, that her tongue would heal. But you all know by reading the blog today that that's not going to happen. Her tongue is not going to get better. It will proceed to continue to get worse. So we will continue to feed her till she's no longer with us. How does she get water in her? Her A&D, we put anywhere from, sometimes it's 25, sometimes I'll go up to 30 cc's or so to a can of water, or to a can of A&D, so that's a lot of water. And then every tube feeding, she gets probably an additional 10 cc's on top of that. How does she stay groomed? Another good question. That's part of the problem. When a cat doesn't have the front part of the tongue, they can't do that licking motion to groom themselves. Now you might see her when she's really, really wet, and you might see her over there grooming and grooming and grooming and grooming. And when you then look at her, she's actually very slobbery wet. The saliva comes to do the job of the grooming, but her tongue can't move it around, clean it up, and slurp it back in. So that saliva stays on her. So the grooming is hard for her. And there's 2 things that satisfies a cat. One is to be able to eat. They have that desire, but the other is grooming. You know, cats groom many hours a day, and it's important to them, to their well-being. So, yeah, that's kind of a hard thing, because I know that she doesn't like how she has to groom herself. Yeah. Any other questions on this? trying to think, I think I answered the questions that I had gotten about the antibiotics and about her lungs, and if you can do the antibiotics with the food, and how long we can do this, you know, and actually cats, if they're long-term on a feeding tube, they can stay in for a couple months now, but to actually change in the feeding tube, they have to anesthetize them, and I don't know if we're going to be able to go there with that with her again. But the pulling out, they can just do that with a little local. That's real easy. I don't think it's going to, Gail. I don't think her fur is going to grow in. You know, she's been here for a couple months now, and it's not looking like she's getting any little fuzzy wuzzy baby hair. Yeah. She still has the taste on the back of her tongue. She still does that. And now when she asks us, that's okay, KB, when she asks us to feed her, because you can tell when she's hungry, I try to give her more of the baby food, because that, she can work that a little bit to get down, and I'm not so afraid of her aspirating that. Yeah, Sherry, that's actually a good idea. That really is, and I might have to try that. How often do I feed her? She usually gets 5 feedings a day. Is there any way to get the Facebook comments? I do know that the video that Just Me made, I know Dawnstar moved that over to the families, to Brooke's Facebook page, and I'm quite sure there's going to be a lot of comments on there. And I want to also, after a bit, I'm going to talk to the mom and dad. We've met them several times over, and I'd like to just talk to them and let them know how important Brooke was to us. Yeah, and that's the whole thing, isn't it, DeWitty? Mowgli has to be happy. Yeah. She's probably waiting for her bed. All right. If you ever have any questions, though, I'm always open. I don't mind being emailed about questions at all. It's okay. Or if you catch me on the cam. It's been a hard couple weeks here, so I haven't been quite able to come up here as much as what I like to. Thank you, everyone. It's nice to know you all care, and I know you do. All right, we got a little job to do outside, so we're gonna get cracking here. All right, thank you all. I'm gonna lower you back down so you can see more of the floor with the babies. Mowgli, yes, I just love her. She's got enough firecracker in her to make her fun. Yeah. All right, little girlie. You want your Betty by, or what do you want to do now? You want to just hang out? Okay? All right, I hear ya.